With 2 adventures under his belt, Raz is finally brought to the headquarters of the Psychonauts. Believing his experiences earned him a spot amongst their ranks, the boy is in for a rude awakening. The acting head of the psychic spy organization is not impressed and rejects Ford Crueller's decision to make Raz a fully certified member. Instead, he is placed into the intern program. Shortly after, Sasha and Milla are deployed on an official mission to the Lady Lucktopus Casino. Expecting to be included, Razputin is mortified that he is forced to remain in the headquarters and go to class with the other interns. This class is to be run by the lesser head of the Psychonauts, Hollis Forsythe. She comes off as both dismissive and overly protective. She is stern and obeys regulation to the letter. Like with any character in this franchise, she is more than meets the eye, though. In order to figure out how her mind ticks, we must dive in and take a look. The initial purpose of Hollis's mind is to act as a classroom for the students. Centered around a floating platform, she instructs them on the use of an advanced technique called mental connection. Razputin doesn't get the full lecture, but is able to guess that it involves forming connections with ideas in another person's head. When asked to demonstrate, the new intern messes up a bit. Instead of making a connection, he jumps inside the idea and forces it to connect to others. This is advertised as not being the proper way to use this ability, but it is a functional way to use it regardless. Most of the mechanics in Hollis' mind involves this method. Each time he does, it forces her mind to change just a little bit at a time. Usually this is generally harmless, like her opinions on cilantro or socks and sandals. But one wrong move can radically alter her mind. This is what the other interns try to coerce Raz into doing, changing her mind through mental connection so they can go on the casino mission with Sasha and Milla. While most abilities don't have too much relevancy, this one is different. Mental connection involves 2 primary ideas that are important for us to cover: empathy and the law of associative memory. Let's start with the first. Mental connection in its primary form is to link yourself to a thought in another person's head. In a certain way of viewing it, it is a form of empathy, and there are 3 primary types. While the last one will be the most relevant to the mental world, I'll go over all of them anyway. The first is compassionate empathy. This is the one most commonly associated with the word. It involves empathetic motivation or concern. When someone is in a bad position, those who experience compassionate empathy feel inspired to help them. This can be donating to a charity, helping out a shelter, or even something as simple as pulling over to help someone with a flat tire. The next is affective empathy. Otherwise known as emotional empathy or sympathy, it is what allows us to feel another's emotions. Upon seeing a friend or family member in a bad emotional state, we feel sad for them. This can even develop with fictional characters, as we become emotional when reading a book, watching a film, or playing a video game. For this form of empathy, it is important to guard against too much of it. Being consumed by another's pain can lead to high concentrations of the stress hormone cortisol, which can lead to depression and anxiety. Finally, we get to the third and most important one of the 3, cognitive empathy. This involves a rational understanding of not only the beliefs of another, but how they come to forming those beliefs. It is the ability to put yourself in another person's mindset to understand why someone believes something. In personal, business, or political settings, it is an effective tool in negotiations and reaching settlements. Cognitive empathy removes any emotional involvement in decision-making, as one can too easily get caught up in emotional thought instead of a rational thought. If the person you're trying to sell a house to, for example, does something to irritate you, you can respond emotionally, and the sale may quickly be lost because the relationship is lost. It is apparent from the player's perspective what Hollis thinks about the situation at hand. Children are not allowed on the casino mission. They must remain here no matter what. The thing is, the interns want to go. They can choose to pester her about it or do something rash like sneaking onto the jet. But this is unlikely to work, as it fails to address the root cause of her decision. This is where cognitive empathy comes into play. It invites Razputin to ask not what Hollis thinks, but why she thinks it. Once that is known, he can attempt to change her mind. At the end of the day, Psychonauts is a visualized example of cognitive empathy. Raz goes into the minds of another and figures out why they think and behave the way they do. While effective and compassionate empathy go along with it, at the root, the why is the big question. A question we can answer by exploring her inner world. After breaking out of the classroom, Razputin finds himself in the back of an ambulance driven by Hollis. Eavesdropping, he overhears her inner anxieties about money management, the safety of the children, and various other things that she feels are her personal responsibility to take care of. Considering Truman is out of commission after the Rhombus of Ruin incident, it all falls on her shoulders. Upon leaving the ambulance, Hollis enters her inner sanctuary, which takes the form of a hospital she worked at previously. Her experience here was one that shaped her need to control every aspect of her professional life. Let's take a look at her mental vault to get an idea. In the first one, entitled Dr. Potts is the Pits, we get an idea of both her work ethic and how that dedication was taken advantage of. As an intern, she worked under Dr. Potts. In what free time she had, she worked herself ragged, developing a new therapeutic technique that became known as the Forsythe method. After its success became widely apparent, Dr. Potts plagiarized her ideas and published them as his own work. The recognition that was rightfully hers was stripped away. In the workplace, this is a dangerous thing. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, recognition is a necessity for all levels, but specifically for esteem and self-actualization. Under healthy circumstances, social recognition in both personal and business life is needed for positive group dynamics. In addition, it has been linked to the production of oxytocin, the hormone that facilitates bonds. An absence of this hormone impedes an individual's ability to bond and form productive relationships. In the context of employer-employee dynamics, giving recognition for good work is essential for this reason. Absence of positive bonds leads to dysfunction. The presence of positive bonds leads to several beneficial effects. This includes stronger bonds of trust between both parties, improved motivation when your work is validated, and increased productivity. I'm sure everyone has worked a job where we felt undervalued. Be honest, are you more willing to work for a boss who sees you as a faceless minion, or one that appreciates your effort and shows it? While we don't know how the relationship was prior to this event, it is obvious that Dr. Potts not only showed Forsythe no recognition, but erased her efforts as though they never existed. He displayed zero displays of empathy towards her in this act. This created outright animosity towards him in her eyes, as if she could not get recognition this way. And if she could not get recognition this way, she would find another way. Being interested in neurology, she turned to a book called Changing Minds Through Mental Connection for guidance. This brings us full circle to the second topic relevant to mental connections, the law of associative memory. While associative memory is simply defined as the ability to learn and remember relationships between unrelated items, it has a broader importance in human cognition. Let's start with the basics. One example of associative memory is face name pairs. Through facial recognition, our brains associate this individual with their given name. Another is how we link a certain smell to a happy memory of a person. Scent, after all, is considered to be the greatest trigger for memory. These associations are not a one-for-one link, however. Each singular, for lack of a better word, node, is only a single piece of this associative network. Imagine a vast spider's web of connected thoughts, emotions, and memories that all link to one another in a chaotic way. All of us have unique associative networks based upon our own lived life experience. Now for an example of this. The image of a deceased pet can link you to the emotion of love and sorrow at the same time. But the feeling of love can link you around to the first day you adopted the animal and the sense of joy you felt. Then it links to the person in your life who lived with you when you adopted this pet. From here, it may link you to the feeling of betrayal over a breakup with this individual. So, looking through your old photos can lead you to an unrelated feeling of betrayal through this associative network. By means of operant conditioning, our neural networks grow and are unique to the individuals based upon our life experience. If every time you put in effort and fail, the stronger the association between work and failure becomes. Those who grew up in an abusive household or witnessed it in their parents begin to associate abuse with relationships. Through operant conditioning, this belief is reinforced and the association between these thoughts becomes stronger. So much so that when forming their own relationships, the negative side of things is what they expect. Everything we process in the world is filtered through this associative network and shapes how we react to things in our environment. But why is this relevant? Because the conscious manipulation of this network is what Hollis studies in the book about mental connections. First, she determined how Dr. Potts' mind made associations through cognitive empathy. Then she disconnected and rearranged those connections. She forced Dr. Potts to make mental connections that were not native to him. Plagiarism and morality had no correlation. There was no ethical thought in his head when considering how he took advantage of his intern's work, claiming credit for it. Through mental connection, Hollis forces his mind to link all of these together with the intention of making him realize just how immoral he was. The trouble is, she didn't realize how far-reaching her manipulations would go. By changing a few thought nodes, every life experience he ever had is now filtered through this revised network of mental associations. This caused a cascading effect that drove him insane. The mental control she envisioned did not work out the way she intended. After realizing her mistake, Hollis was unable to fix the problem and needed to call the Psychonauts in to fix Dr. Potts' twisted mind. Razputin is tasked by the other interns with doing the exact same thing, to find a way to gain access and alter Hollis' network of associative thoughts, to change her mind about the mission. Inside the hospital chapel and through a form of cognitive empathy, he witnesses her mental associations firsthand. A tie between money and stress, as well as risk and death. By having these thoughts linked for so long, they formed long-term connections. Ones that are hard to break for most of us without cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. For a trained psychic, these changes can be made quickly through use of the mental connection technique. These two mental associations of stress to money and death to risk make up a huge part of Forsythe's personality. How to fund and maintain the Psychonauts as an organization, and how to protect the children and keep them out of harm's way. Without knowing the consequences of his actions, Razputin severs and redirects the pathways for these ideas. Risk and death are no longer a connection in her mind. Her concern for the children's safety is gone, and the capacity for risk-taking behavior is unlocked. The association between money and stress is also cut. Instead, Razputin links risk with money. In his head, he believes this will cause her to go to the casino and let the interns go along for the mission. What really happens is exactly what happened to Dr. Potts. Her entire associative thought network is rewritten based upon these two small changes. Her mind's natural ability to process information is radically altered. It becomes quickly apparent that he gave the second head of the Psychonauts a gambling addiction. Both characters fell into the same trap, a trap fueled by a singular bad idea. To force their will upon another, to fundamentally change a person's inner world solely for personal gain. This bad idea is the theme for the second part of this world. After the hospital is radically changed, her thinking is a long series of bad ideas. Some, like the gambling addiction, are new. Some are much older that Hollis dealt with long before meeting the boy. These bad ideas and cognitive behavioral therapy will be explored in further detail during the next episode, Hollis' Hot Streak. See you then. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe to receive updates on future uploads. If you would like to help support the channel, a Patreon has been set up and the link is in the description below. Have a great day and peace be with you all.